Here, you can exercise your rights to freedom every day without leaving your home. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stain City way.
Good afternoon. You're watching Real Talk with myself, Anele on SABC3. Welcome. Now, I'm sure rugby lovers and literature fanatics are as excited as I am about my guest this afternoon. He is a former Springbok player, the first black South African rugby export, and was the third black African player to wear a Springbok jersey after the unification in 1992. And in the year 2000, he made his debut in a tour game against Argentina. His journey to the top was not an easy one, and has launched his biography, Being a Black Springbok, which he tells the story of how he negotiated life's perils and pitfalls which threatened to derail both his sporting ambitions and the course of his life. A man who, despite coming from a broken home, has managed to become one of South Africa's bravest loose forwards to be produced, while earning the reputation of the tough tackling player of colour. Hailing all the way from New Brighton, PE stand-up. Playing for the Irish Black College, Thando Manana is here to tell his story of what it's like to be a black Springbok. Welcome to the show.
Mamfene.
Mamfene.
Zulu.
Lisa, Msotho.
Mandukutsale.
Tell us a story. Tell us a story. I'm so excited that you're here. My team have experienced me being like this the whole day. Because I was like, his book has got too much detail.
Yes.
I don't know. Here's the thing. You've given me so much to talk to you about. And we only have an hour. So Desmond.
I'll tell you a story about that.
Desmond.
Let me tell you a story.
Tell me a story about Desmond.
The name Des, which was a nickname, later was a nickname, my mother enrolled me to a primary school in the northern areas, Galvin Park.
Yes.
My name is Thando Manana.
Yes.
But when she got to the school, she penciled in the name Desmond.
Why?
I think it's the norm when you go to these schools. You have to have an English name. So she felt it would be much easier if they said strictly Desmond Manana.
Were you struggling to get into the school? Because I figured like there was like politics around you going to the school. Were you struggling to get in? So she just was like, you know what, there's already too much struggle. Let's not make it difficult for them to pronounce his name.
Not really.
Yeah.
It was a time then that the colored schools were starting to accept black students. But my mother felt because she had friends with colored, it would be much better because her name is Ruth. So it would have been better for her to give me that name. When we did the book with Sibusiso, we went to the school. And we went through the records because that's what's important in the book is it's factual findings.
Yeah.
Factual findings.
Yeah.
So we came across the name Desmond in pencil. So to my surprise, my mother had initially given me a second name, which I never had. But it stuck throughout my time whilst I was in the colored area up until I finished standard 10. And then I resorted back to the original name called Thando Manana.
And prior to you going to the colored area, did you know how to speak Afrikaans?
No.
So
No.
the Afrikaans that then later came in handy for you,
Yes.
playing rugby, which is a very big Afrikaans culture, you picked up in the colored areas.
Definitely so. I was in an English throughout my career, from standard 1 to standard 5, English class. Standard 6 to standard 10, English class. Here's the trick. I stayed in Galvin. When I stayed in Galvin, obviously...
I like the way the colored accent comes out.
It comes out.
Galvin.
Yes.
I stayed in Galvin.
So when I stayed in Galvin, you found that I'd made so much friends that my last 4 years out of the 10, I stayed literally, as you read in chapter 71 Martin Street, Uncle Man. I stayed at the house every day of my entire life, only going home on weekends. So in between, you know how the boys are. You have to have someone. And my unfortunate sake was I got an Afrikaans-speaking girlfriend along the way in high school. So that's how I got to learn of the language.
And I mean, you know, you learn the tongue by exchanging tongues.
You have to go and visit. You have to do the norms. But also, I think also what's important is rugby was purely for the Afrikaans-speaking at the time.
Okay, not to derail you, but you said that your mom's name was Ruth.
Yes.
Why did you call her Kati?
That's her name, Katala.
Katala.
So her name is Katala, But I give almost everyone a nickname.
A nickname.
So she's been Kati throughout. In fact, Usbu fascinated me when we were going through the book, and I kept on reading Ukati, and I'm like, hey, Usbu, ucingibundim. So he refers to her even when he goes to PE as Ukati.
You called your grandmother mom.
Yes,
and
correctly
your mom
so.
Kati.
Yes.
But it's not like your mom was, because I know those situations. It's a very big part of our black culture where your mom gives birth to you, she goes to drop you off by your grandmother so that she can continue working, and she comes home to see you. But that wasn't the norm for you.
No.
You stayed with your mom all the time.
Both
in
of
fact,
them.
you guys shared a room, and your grandmother would sleep in the one room, and you and your mom would
Yes.
sleep in one bed.
Yes, correctly so.
Why call her Kati when she's there and she's your mom?
I saw her as my sister, if I were to put it correctly. Remember, my grandmother, Mama, Ukatala, I had no space for another mom. So she had to be Ukati. And up until today, I've never called her mom.
Really?
Never. She'll tell you. I call her Ukati or Mamwev because that's her clan name, Mamwev, Khudul. That's how I would call her. And you speak of, if I recall, in the book I write, in fact, is when I recall, is we were sleeping in this bed, and she was sleeping on top, and I was sleeping as Nyawin, as we would call it, for most of my younger age.
Until you moved to your
Until
friend's
I
house.
moved to Galvindale, where for the first time,
You got your own
I
bed.
got my own bed. I got my own bed. So those are the stories that I put in the book.
Okay. So another story you put in the book.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't know if your parents were together or not.
Yes.
But when you first start speaking about them, you paint such a love story that you couldn't have been there to witness.
I doubt.
But people obviously told you how in love your parents were, even though they never got married,
Yes.
right? Did you ever witness a moment between your parents where it made sense how you were conceived?
No. The reason I write down is because I'm a father myself. And when you're a parent, and you hear of the news that you'll be a father, it's not by mistake. It's not by luck. It's by the gift of the Almighty Himself. The memories I have of them are not good memories, and I put it down. And at the time, my uncles were still there. So she needed a lot of protectiveness, and I was young. I was helpless. I was a helpless son at the time. So I've never seen, but you can see before you start chapter 1, which is called New Brighton, you look on your left-hand side, the picture of them at a beach called St. George's Strand.
Because you said they used to go to jazz together,
Yes,
they used to go to concerts together. So you built such a nice love story.
Yes.
But I wanted to know if you'd ever seen it for yourself. Then who is the limitless lover? Where did you get that? Because you're almost obsessive when you like something.
Yes.
I'll give you an example why I say so. In the book, you like cricket. You like cricket a lot.
Yes.
So Dave Richardson
Yes.
is a cricket legend.
Yes.
You stalk him, you find his phone number in the telephone directory, you call him, he says, Dave Richardson, hello. They're like, okay, he lives there, you hang up. You're like, I'm gonna walk to his house, because back then the telephone directory had the
Yellow
address.
pages.
Yellow pages.
Yeah.
Walk to his house, knock and say, I just came to tell you I love cricket and I love you, and I have no equipment, but I like the sport. And then he gives you the equipment.
What can you do? It's a fascinating story. At the time, I'm always an ambitious somebody throughout my entire life.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong, Anele, than to try something. This was for me just to try. The minute the lady picked up the phone and said, she'll call David.
Yeah. You knew he lives there.
I knew that's the right house. So I got the number, and then I had to walk. I had to go past 5 Ways, which is in Central. And then as you go, Kloof, Parkens Kloof down in PE, and then I saw the street. Now I had to calculate the number. So when I got and I knocked, I was never afraid at the time, but it's only at the knock. Then I realized, wow, what have I done? Because I can't move back. I've walked several kilos from New Brighton to Central. And here's the guy, he opens the door, and I'm starstruck because here's a South African wicket keeper.
He's your guy.
In front of me. And he welcomes me in short right, we sit in the lounge. No one has still got small kids. And I saw the nanny at the time that picked up the phone.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I put my case forward that, look, we have a cricket club in New Brighton, some of us, but we lack equipment. And at the time, I didn't know that he will give me his GM gloves.
Exactly.
He
Now
would
hold
give
that
me,
thought.
yeah.
This GM glove, I want to talk about it when we come back from
Yeah.
the break, because I know you left with a lot of a lot of stuff from him. So we've spoken about this. Rejected by his father early in his life, Thando had to deal with the sense of abandonment and missing a protective figure, and found along the way people to lean on. After the break, we chat more to Thando about his journey to being one of the best rugby players we've ever seen. We're also taking your comments and questions for Thando. Obviously, the platform is also yours. Just simply SMS us or send us a voice note of no more than 20 seconds to our WhatsApp line. The details are on the screen. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Gerald Mr. G. Mwandiambira. As we celebrate Mandela Day, may we remember that he stood for more than just money. Let us not be corrupted by money. Let us remember those who are less fortunate than others, and let's try and give time to others as well, just like Nelson Mandela did.
And welcome back to Real Talk with myself, Anele. Our guest today is rugby commentator and former Springbok player Thando Manana, who made his Springbok debut on the 8th of November, the year 2000, when he ran on against Argentina. He then toured with the Boks to Argentina, Ireland, Wales, and England. And he's here today to tell us about his book, Being a Black Springbok. So now we're still in cricket, because I want to paint this picture, because this journey of you to rugby is amazing. There's cricket, then there's drama, and then there's rugby, right?
That's
We're
correct.
in cricket. So you get this, this glove from Dave Richardson, who you stalked until you got to his house.
Yes.
Along the book, there's a lot of things that you get, memorabilia, uniform, like tracksuits and caps and gloves and blazers. Out of all of the memorabilia that you collected along your life, which one is most important to you?
It's the SA under 23.
Why?
I'd never played national rugby up until that time. I'd had an opportunity with the SA under 21 trials, which was held in Johannesburg, and we had stayed at Mill Park, but I failed to go and progress to the final 26-man squad at the time.
Is this the one you blame Joseph Ntongwana for?
The X-Man, I call him, Joseph Ntongwana.
That's awkward.
Yes.
Is he still in jail?
He's still there.
Hey, Joseph.
He's still there. So when I made the SA under 23, trials and tribulations had been erased. Joy, the sense of you being called on television, the sense of you being written up in the back pages that you've become a junior Springbok. The SA under 21 didn't matter at the time. What mattered for me was I would always remain a junior Springbok, which is one step closer
to being a Springbok.
And people at the time would have loved to play SA under 23, because if you had played for the SA under 21, it was still the youth national side, not exactly where you can be regarded as a junior Springbok. Fast forward the times. In 2017, if you play SA under 20, you are a junior Springbok, because you no longer have, as they used to have, the SA under 23 sides, which were selected at the time.
Now, here's the thing about sports is that on any time you're running onto a field, it's your chance, A, to win that game, right? And to prove yourself to whoever's watching that, you should be progressing to the next level. And I find that even when you were playing for the Spring Rose, you were always making sure that people were watching you for the next thing. Even when you went to go play for Griquas, right? You, A, were using it to show the people in the Eastern Province that they should have given you a contract, they should have kept you there and moved you from the merit side to the real side, right?
Which I was.
Which
and subsequently I was just dropped with no explanation. That kills a person. It kills you to look at the next week in the same light that you did when you were part of the squad. Being dropped anywhere, being demoted, whether you're at work and you're demoted, you don't feel like going back to work. Because when you go back, you look at the people, how they're going to look at you at the time. Remember, it's sport. So for them, it's more of a joke to say that, it was so-and-so's jersey nonetheless. That's how it goes. Let me tell you a typical example. We're on tour with the Springboks. Victor Matfield, same year we get selected for the Springboks, my Griquas teammate. Now, whilst we're in the squad, this is how rough it was at the time. He was told in his eyes that the jersey that he's wearing It's not his jersey. It's Johan Ackerman jersey, the guy that coaches now the Lions.
Yeah.
He was subsequent to that not selected because of a ban that he was given by the IRB for 2 years.
Yeah.
And Victor was selected, and people were saying he didn't deserve to be in the Springbok in front of his face.
I remember this.
In front of his face. Now, what does it tell you? It tells you that
It unsettles you, right?
It must unsettle. But look at him. He's played over 100 test matches. He's one of a living legend. And I can safely say, if you read in the book, that we spooned together when we were away in Tabazimbi.
I remember this when you were
Yes.
with the Bulls.
That is correct.
Now, you and Victor are still friends.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Because I like Victor.
Yes. He's a nice guy. We
Yeah.
meet once we met. I think I said to him, you don't have to worry about having a conversation. What for me is important is when we've played together, it's just the look, nothing else. You're at Supersport and I'm at the SABC. We are called rivals, but what people don't know is where we come from. But for us together, it's just a look. We don't have to jump for each other or rush for each other. For me, I'm happy with the look. It means that we are still in sync and also still friends going forward.
So, outside of Joseph Njongwane,
Yeah.
the X-Men,
Yeah.
and Mark Andrews,
Yes.
right? Because I think those are the only two people in the book where
Yeah.
you speak with a bit of spice, you know. There's a tone when you speak about them. But even you said, Mark Andrews, you left your differences on the field,
Yes.
right? Outside of those two, you quite congratulatory of other people.
Yes.
Like you speak with such flair about other people's talent. Like you speak about Ashwell Prince.
Yes.
And I think you actually had a little bit of a crush on him as a cricketer when you
was
you guys,
my captain.
Yes, when you were young,
He
you're
was
like,
my captain at
you're
school.
like, oh my word. And then we'd collect the balls for them and he was this and he was this.
You'd bowl the whole day.
Yeah.
We had 2 nets
Yeah.
at St. Thomas, and we'd use 1. And he would sit there as a captain because we knew that even if we play the real game,
Yeah.
he would bat from start to finish. That's how talented he was. That's why I write in the book, if people rave about a Herschel Gibbs,
Ashwell Prince.
we had our own Ashwell Prince, a guy that had achieved so much. I mean, coming into standard 6, wearing his USASA, primary school colors. And we had nothing at that stage closer to what he had achieved at the time. It just set the bar up very high. In fact, the teachers also equipped that this boy is putting them under so much pressure because he's not only taken off all his national wardrobe clothing, he's worn it to school and he's just come to show them that he's the thing.
He's the definite
And he proved it because he later became an SA Test cricket captain, the first black to do so.
So who speaks that highly of you, in the players that you've played with? Because and we're going to discuss this later, just the drama around you being in the Springboks and, you being on tour and being told by teammates, you're famous back home, everyone is talking about you. Who do you know without a shadow of a doubt that guy speaks highly of me, the way you would speak of Ashwell Prince?
It's the guys I played with at Chapman High School. Those are the real buddies.
And you went there in matric, ne?
I never went to matric. I did standard 6 to standard 10 at St. Thomas.
Yeah. Then why did you play for Chapman?
Because St. Thomas had only for 1 year. And that was the birth of Thando Manana when I was in standard 9. So it was a time to conceive Thando and to give birth to Thando.
Okay.
Because what would happen in standard 10 was we never had a rugby team. Then 2 schools were looking for my services. One was Hillside, which is on your way to Clary Park. Then the one was just further up, which is Chapman High. And Chapman High, I'd already played with most or some of them through a guy called Mela Klassen at the time. He had the All Blacks under-17 team
the club.
named a club.
Yes.
So I'd played going to Cape Town. So I knew the guys. So I took not an emotional decision, but a more calculated decision that I will play with guys that I know, that I can hang around after playing. Remember, in the northern areas, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of, if one was playing for Chetty, you already have that rivalry that you have with the traditionally rugby schools. So for me, it was easy to go and become the only one from St. Thomas to make Cravenwick, not from St. Thomas, but to make Cravenwick from another school, which was Chapman.
So Chapman, those are your guys.
Those are my guys.
Those are his guys.
Yeah.
Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. You're watching Real Talk on SABC3, where the stage is yours. If you've just tuned in, hello. We're in conversation with former Springbok loose forward Thando Manana. Your tweets are coming through. Hashtag Real Talk with Anele on Twitter. From Unati says, ask him if he can accept the nickname I'm going to give him, Thando the Iron Man. Manana?
I had so many names. I'll think about that.
Okay. Edmund Gordon says he is one of my favorite sports analysts and intellectuals.
Intellectual? In rugby?
Yeah,
Do
you
we
know
have
enough
that?
about it.
Okay.
So you are wise.
They
on
call
it.
me the encyclopedia, by the way.
Look, your book, I
Yeah.
was saying this to you
Yeah.
when I went to go say hi when you arrived, and I was just like, how is your memory like that? The detail in it is insane. We'll speak about it when your co-author is here with us. You do realize that you have like a natural flair. You are supremely like talented because you started with cricket and then you went to drama, where you then performed well and you won awards, and it looked like basically you should have been in Generations today.
You know, when I look at the SABC and I go past, they're wearing the gowns, I sort of think, would those gowns be fitting me at this stage? I did well at drama. I love drama. You'll also in the book, I talk about Sizubanzi's death.
Yes.
And that's because that was also something I fell in love with. But unfortunately, there was something more to come later on.
Mr. Martin.
Yes. The assassin. The assassin, I call him. But if you look at drama, at the time, I was not an astute soccer player, cricket player. I was just average. I did athletics, I did 800, but I felt I'm too big to run 800.
Yeah.
You need someone who's very thin, who's very light, who's able to run faster. But I'd done everything because I was always energetic. I wanted to always do something.
Yeah.
But what I failed at the time was I couldn't get enough recognition amongst my peers. I always had to look up to them and watch them and give them the support as we go along. However, when I got the drama, I nearly had the hurdle because there was at school John Kani's son, Mjikeliso.
Yeah.
And he also was at one of these auditions. And Michael Berry, the arts teacher and the drama teacher himself, was in awe because he had known of John Kani. Me, I'd seen him on the Sarafinas of this world at the time. So you also sort of, people got fright. I never did. We went for the same personnel that would act, and I got the part. But a year later, I got the main part in The Curse of the White Waters.
Yes.
The Curse of the White Waters went on then to win and beat all the Eastern Cape schools at the Opera House. It was at the Opera House. And there were people, big name judges from Rhodes, Buckland, and so forth and so on, who were judged, and we'd won that competition. It was not then, at the end of it, I was also announced in the Best Actor category. I was only in Standard 8. And even from there, I put it across that Mr. Michael Berry then says to me that, look, your future is really bright.
As a drama student.
As an actor.
As an actor,
As an actor in drama. Because the previous year I won Best Supporting Actor, and I was in now for Best Actor, 7 and 8. And I already found something that I thought. I had 2 more years so that I'm able then to pursue my career and go to Rhodes to further that career.
So up until Standard 8, you had never played rugby?
Never. Not
even casually touch rugby on a Sunday?
I'd seen the guys play at Spring Roses at a school called Nikiwe Primary School, which was a higher primary school. And because I'd seen them was because of cricket. Because that was the only school in New Brighton that had facilities other than Denkeke Stadium at the time. So by going and bowling to the Lulama Masikazana, the Roger Kekes, or Teenage, or Kenneth Mahua at the time, you would see then Spring Roses who had moved from Pendla Primary School who'd also got in the field to practice rugby because Pendla didn't have poles, rugby poles. So you'd see the guys, but with bowling, you'd see them come in.
Like, so you understand, that's
so
what they're playing there is rugby.
It's rugby. You knew it's rugby, right? You knew it's rugby. And that is 1994.
So, okay.
The hype of 1995 was to come.
Yes, because then we win the World Cup.
We win the World Cup.
On our home turf. And even then, you're not taking it seriously. You're like, oh man, this is an okay sport.
In fact, in 1995, my life changed at that parking lot. I'll never forget that parking lot where I was asked, just to fill in the numbers for St. Thomas High School.
By Mr. Martin?
By Mr. Martin.
Yes.
That is correct. But prior to that, I was a through and through rugby guy who, after winning the case of the White Waters, I was given the honor
drama guy
to address the assembly. And I was the thing on the day. I was the thing because it's never easy for any youngster in Standard 8 to address his peers and also those that are in Standard 10 and Standard 9. Even the head boy at the school never addressed so many students in front of him.
All right, so when the rugby bug bit, obviously it bit all the way to you representing the Springboks. I feel like, you know, there's a movie called The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
I've watched that.
Yeah, have you watched?
Yeah.
Do you not feel that every 5 minutes something bad happens to him? Then he wins. Okay, then we're like, oh, and then nah.
Then again.
I feel like your life story with this book is it's when rugby started. It was like high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. I mean, how do you handle the lows without letting the highs distract you too much?
I'll tell you a story. In my life with rugby, is I fell in love with rugby. It's a different than falling in love with a girlfriend. Because there, you can easily have a breakup. Doesn't matter after how many months or years.
Yeah.
Rugby, when I fell in love with it, it was a fix. It's still a fix. That is why I'm still vocal about it, because I played the game because I utterly love the game. It motivated me every day that I wanted to run from, if I went to town, Strand Street, and run up to, at the time, Boetie Rasmus Stadium in Summerstrand and get a lift back home. It allowed me to walk from Galvin to go and train with the Springbok, Springrose guys and walk back to Galvindale. And that's for me.
The lows, you don't care, you never cared about the lows because you were so in love with it.
So in love. People ask me, do I have any regrets? I said, no. You know why? Because I still love the game. I'm not separated from the game. They couldn't do. One of my stunts was, I'm nobody's garden boy. They were never there when I was introduced to the game. They were never there when I sat at night and says, actually, I love the sport.
Who's they?
Well, in life, no, you don't get a lot of people who loves the progress. Many people were always saying that maybe I would not make it. I mean, I'm being very, not critical, but saying, I was very disappointed in even my drama teacher when I told him that I'm going to play the game. And the reaction I got from there, it showed me that, you know, even the older people, you know, you have to really look at yourself as an individual to really know what you want, what do you aspire to be. Because he never saw or he never felt the burn that was within me in those corridors at St. Thomas High, me going and playing at Chapman High. Remember, anyone, when we didn't have rugby, could have maybe also stopped and pursued drama. I didn't. I went to another school, a different culture, a different time of when they get out, but also I had to make sure that I'm there for training. I play with the guys that I won't see during the week at school. I'll only see after school. So it takes a lot from you as a person that you have to really be crazy in love with this sport and not care about anything, because it was never about money. I put down what I got on as a contract at Greek, I put down, it's there, because it was not about money.
It was about playing the game.
It was about enjoying the game.
Thando Manana is not only the first black person to ever play Griquas, but in 2002, he became the first black national player to leave South Africa for a professional career outside the country when he arrived in Ireland to play for the Black Rock, playing in the All-Ireland League. More of his fascinating journey to the top when we return.
On this day, we remember the great Nelson Mandela. As we celebrate his life and we celebrate his legacy, I want us to remember that he fought for equality and he fought for education. Education not just in the classroom, but education in the world. Let us educate one another, let us keep pushing, and let us remember that we are all equal. Happy Nelson Mandela Day.
And we're back on Real Talk with our guest today, former Springbok Thando Manana. Listen, if you're going to want to have the conversation about transformation, especially in rugby, you have to get his book. You first read the book, and then you can enter the debate so that we can talk about. No, really, I just feel like you paint the perfect picture because it's your story and you were in there. Paint the day you were announced as a Springbok.
I was in a street called Gamlana Street.
Oh, we're not going to detail.
Yes. Assisting Piwe, who's a relative of mine. He had a spaza shop called Kapiwe, kwa MacGyver. So I assisted him. And the only reason I was assisting him is I was driving around. And I was fascinated at the time because I was able to drive. When I got to PE, he gives me a van to drive around and to go and buy some of his stuff for the shop. So later on, there were going to be two squads announced. First is the SA Under-23, which was going to Morocco to play the final because we had played the round robin of the African Nations Cup earlier on in June, July. So I was sitting. I'd given in my passport, so I knew that I would be announced, but I wanted to hear that my name is on.
For Under-23? For
the Under-23.
Okay.
It never was in my mind that I was going to go with the Springboks.
Which one did they announce first, the Springboks or the
SA Under-23?
So when they don't announce you, what do you think?
I was not injured. I thought of the clash I had with Mark Andrews. I thought of maybe someone lied and said I'm injured.
Okay.
So I'm not in the squad.
Oh, your poor heart.
So the guy that was reading the team was the then president, Silas Nganunu. With Francois Davids. They finished reading the Under-23 side going to Morocco. No name. And I said, let me then listen to the Springbok squad.
Because you're a fan. And then your name is announced.
And they go through alphabetically.
Okay.
It only resonated in my mind when they got to K. And then they went to L. M was my surname. Was my name.
And it's NA, so it comes right at top.
And I'd graduated within the first year of playing SA Under-23. And I was not at home. I was not with my grandmother at the time. I was not with my mother at the time. I was at someone else's place who knew nothing about the game, who was just, a big brother to me. And I had to walk from Gamlana to Emadala, which luckily enough is not that far off, to really celebrate. When I got there, which I was staying in Gangen at the time, which is a cul-de-sac, is people already at home celebrating whilst I was not even there. But it didn't come to me that, it didn't at first, I had to wait for the newspapers as the norm. So the Sunday Times, I really felt that I was really going to be part of the Springbok squad because I was on the front page of the Sunday Times. And also, history was made. You had 8 players.
For the first time.
For the first time in the touring squad, which included my friend Chester Williams, who at the time was my hero, but I would be with him. Your Brayton Paulson, your Quinton Davies, who would suffer a great tragedy and would be disappointed because he was let down by our own administrators in this country in the Gio Cronje and Quinton Davids saga. He was there. You'd have Lawrence Parker, who would also suffer years later, himself a tragedy in the Rugby World Cup, taken out of only just playing a couple of 20 minutes. And Lawrence Parker would affirm that it was the right decision, when it was not the right decision. Because, as I put it, being a Black Springbok, that's what we go through, Anele. People not being able to raise their opinions.
I feel like, every time I see the Springboks, right, and the last time I saw them was in Cape Town walking out of a hotel, it's like the white ones and then the black ones, always walking separately. Now, that's just the way we are humanized, I guess. You go to what's closest to you and what you know. But I always feel like the Black Springboks are constantly on the periphery, on the outside of the inner workings, right? And when you say you went to Argentina and you refused to do Contiki, which is the initiation process.
A barbaric act.
Yes, which had been removed.
Yes,
and
it
then
was.
Youth van der Westhuizen and said he wants it back.
Yes.
Right. Was there not a little bit of you that's just like, you know what, I want to be part of this. I want to be a Springbok for a long time. let me just talk, you know, like even when you get to companies, they're like, just hold the company line, you know, and so that you can, once you know you're in, then you can want to change the rules. Did a little bit of you not just want to do that?
No, I didn't buy myself into the Springbok squad. If I did, yes, I would have told the lie. They called my name on TV. I never called my name. They had seen that I'd given them all they wanted to see throughout the 2000 season, where I was the defender of the series in the Vodacom Cup. I was the highest tackler in the Currie Cup. And I'd done something that many of black players had followed suit, and that was I became the first black to play for Griquas for over 100 years in their Currie Cup side. And therefore, playing almost all the games throughout, meaning that I deserve to be in the squad. Let alone people will talk of, or people being quota, as I call them, brigade, that whenever they see someone who's black, they rush to the word quota.
Yeah.
That is to satisfy them, in a sense like that they don't want to acknowledge the black presence. It's happening now. South Africa wins 3-0 against France. Who gets the credit? Franco Smith, Brendan Fenter. Where is the name of the head coach? And no one is questioning that. He is the head coach. Give credit when it's due. When the team was doing poorly, rightfully so, they were lambasting Alistair Coetzee.
Yes.
And I have to also thank Alistair Coetzee, because when he wrote the foreword, he was not the Springbok coach. We didn't go to him begging to write the foreword. I went to him because...
But you've got a relationship with
We've
him.
got a four-way relationship.
Yes.
Student, teacher, player, coach relationship. So for me, when I look at the book and I look what a beautiful foreword he wrote about me, was not because he was busy taking stones from the people out there. But for me, what hurt me the most is when he does well this time around, the same people despise him. They don't want to just give, even if it's 10% of credit, just to mention his name and say, we see that he's brought in at least a change. He's tried to have a winning culture. He's tried to make the group much happier, and also a winning a brand of rugby that he's trying to introduce. And we've seen it. But we'll see more. At least you say, but we'll see more in the rugby championship. Then I will take that.
Please, can we just flag the fact that de Villiers had a better track record than Heineken Meyer, but no one is going to say that out loud.
He's the best. He's the best coach in South Africa since unification, because he's got the most wins against an All Black side.
Even more than Tashman.
Jake White. He's got even more than Jake White, the coach. As the coach, at a year where he beat the All Blacks 3 out of 3 in 1 year, Peter de Villiers did that. No coach has ever done that. He's beaten the All Blacks 5 times. He's won a British and Irish Lions in his tenure. And that is a non-white guy who, on his announcement, if I must remind the viewers, they already know, was told that his appointment was due because that he was black, and it was for those reasons that he got the job ahead of the other candidates.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, my first question to you is, what needs to be fixed in order for Black Springboks to feel welcome in the team? Because it's 2017 and they still don't. And also the guy that wrote the book with you will be sitting down on the couch. There's still more to come right after this. And we're back. You're watching Real Talk with Anele. Today, we're unpacking the most talked about book at the moment. Former Springbok player Thando Manana's biography, penned beautifully and eloquently by kickoff editor Sibusiso Mjikeliso. I said it right, yes. Who joins us right now. So before you came on, there was a question that I had for him. I'm going to ask him, and then you are more than welcome to jump in, Mr. Co-author. How do we, from somebody who was on the inside, right? Right now, 2017. Yes. How do we make sure that Black Springboks feel included in the rugby culture? Yeah.
Look, I'll start with what is currently happening now at St. Cythians. You have the Craven Week.
Yeah.
And when I was there on Monday, because you have to go to these things and you can't just open your mouth without you being at a certain place, because you don't want to talk hearsay.
Yeah.
And I asked myself a question. Since 1992, most people are not aware that the Craven Week has never been at a township, has never been to where most of the youth players who are black are taking part in that competition. And that for me is a disaster to the true transformation that Saru talks about, them themselves. Secondly, black players will always not enjoy the same pedigree as their white counterparts. If you look at the national contracted players, you ask yourself how many players have got a national contract. There's 3 out of the whole that is there. One is Siya Kolisi, 2 is Lwazi Mvovo. Both had 2-year contracts. The only other player who has a contract till 2019 is Beast Mtawarira from the Sharks. Those are the only players. Now, you've got to level the playing fields. However, it is very difficult because the people that were enjoying this sport that we love so much in the then days of apartheid continue to hold on and enjoy, but the benefits are not then shared amongst equally to the new generation of players. I look at boys that are the Craven Week that are at these schools who their parents paid 250,000 plus. They know nothing about what we went through. Now, it's going to be very difficult for me to sit down and explain to each player. This book must do that to the parents. You've got a son. You've got to make sure that you attend these sessions and you question the coaches why your son is not there. Because if you don't, your son will be suffering at the end of the day.
Oh, you know what type of mother I'm going to be. I'm a sideline mom. Hello, coach. I'll bring my own whistle.
Yeah.
Smooth. Why pen this book? Why was it so important for you to put these words between pages?
Well, it's always been a dream of mine to write a book. And it had to be something that's going to have an impact. It had to be something that won't be read out there. You know, I'm a writer's writer. I've always been into print. You know, I'm editing a magazine in a time where who would want to edit magazines? And
print is going down, you know? People say.
But here I am doing the best I can to keep Kickoff magazine as alive as it can. Here I am writing books when people apparently aren't reading books. And here we are talking about a book in the age of social media. You know, I've always felt that I should have been born when Muhammad Ali was at his peak. That was my time, you know, the times of Norman Mailer and David Remnick. But nonetheless, since Ali is no longer around and definitely not boxing anymore, I think you have to find your own story, your own place that will fulfill that need, you know. And I think I found it when I met Thando Manana, you know, and you know, some people will shy away from this thing. I've always said that I'm the kind of person that will see an opportunity. Some people would have said, look, Thando Manana, when did he play? 2000? And you want to release a book about him in 2017. Some people will say, what's he won? You know, he wasn't at the World Cup. 95, he wasn't there. 2007, he wasn't there. You know, what's he done?
What are his credentials?
And people would have found ways or reasons not to do it, you know, and instead I looked for reason to do it. And I found them in the story of his life, not necessarily in the story of his rugby. So this book is really, really about life.
That's very true, because like I was saying to you earlier, that there's a balance, right? There's a balance. It's emotive. So in the same book, possibly sometimes on the same page, I want to laugh and cry, you know, and that's what you did. For you, we haven't given away much what's happened in the book. I want people to go and buy it and read it for themselves. But for you, what is the most emotive story? Which story in the book ties at you the most?
Sheesh, it's very difficult because I was immersed in each and every chapter. I was there. Even though I wasn't there in the past, but as we were driving through Galvindale, measuring the distance he had to walk from New Brighton to Galvin Park Primary, I was there. He was telling me the whole way, where's Hollywood, where they used to hang out, the shop where they used to get like leftover crumbs of samosas. What are they called?
Samosa blara.
Samosa blaras. I was there in those street corners, you know, I put myself there. But because of the history I have with the topic, I would have to say writing Soli Chibilika's chapter.
Yes.
It resonated with me. It was a chapter, writing that chapter was very, very emotive just the story of Soli. Soli is no longer around. He can't tell his story now, and you know, I'm glad the guys like Thando in the world who are able to say, let's do it. And I'm a young writer, you know, and I'm a young editor, and no one was gonna back me. And I'm glad I found a person to back me with his story. With my first book, I hadn't written anything. Most people will ask you, what have you written? What have you done? Well, why should I give you the responsibility of writing my life story, you know? And Thando didn't so much as question my ability, because he had read what I'd written at Sunday Times with many conversations about rugby, and we shook hands, and I've spoken about his handshake. I think 25% of that handshake was mine, 75% is his. No, but we're a partnership. Everything has been 50-50 all the way, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And now, yeah, I hope we lead the way for other Black writers and Black Springboks to tell their stories.
I think between the three of us, we could talk for hours, right? But we're out of time. The one thing I do want to say, right, about the book, and I didn't get to ask this question. So now you will read the book, and then you will ask yourself the question, and you'll try it for yourself. And when you see maybe at the airport, you'll ask him. There's a tie between the fact that his dad was absent because he put his friends first, and there's a tie in him saying that Soliki Bilika passed away because he had a love for friends more than discipline. So for me, I think those are the two biggest heartbreaks of his life. Soli's choosing friends and his father choosing friends over him. So you can go and ask him when you see him again. You can get your copy of Thando's biography signed tomorrow at Kilani Mall, where he will be officially launching his book in Johannesburg. Go and support Thando Manana. Proceeds of this book are going towards a tournament he wants to host in New Brighton in the memory of his friend Soliki Bilika. Now, to all of you China Diaries fans and traveling addicts, do you want to know where Liram Teto and Gaboni Nankwalo are up to this week? Here's a little teaser of what's happening in China Diaries happening this evening.
On the next episode of China Diaries, we serenade Shanghai Harbor, take selfies with the entire eastern seaboard,
You take photo of us? Yeah?
and try to tolerate each other in a taxi.
We're talking about how you treat me, especially around other
How
people.
I treat you?
And you're doing it here in front of the cab driver.
All right. He can't even hear us. It's irrelevant.
China Diaries, Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. on SABC3.
All the spice. Don't miss this one from us and the team from Real Talk with Anele. Goodbye for now. Thank you so much to my guests.